I tweeted this out yesterday, and people were blowing up on Twitter and social media about this story from the Washington Examiner. California Democrats legalize child prostitution. Now, I'm going to get into the actual bill and the nuts and bolts of it, but just some highlights from this story. Beginning on January 1st, prostitution by minors will be legal in California. SB 1322 bars law enforcement from arresting sex workers who are under the age of 18 for soliciting or engaging in prostitution. So teenagers in California will soon be free to have sex in exchange for money without fear of arrest or prosecution. Legislation was passed by progressive Democrats who control California's state governments with a 2/3 supermajority. Predictable consequence of how the real villains, pimps, and other traffickers in human misery will respond to this new law isn't difficult to foresee. Of course, for the Democrats who think that they can create a utopia, it is. Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley says, I quote, "It just opens up the front door for traffickers to use these kids to commit crimes and exploit them for even worse." Now,
exactly. Same reason ISIS uses little kids.
So here's the deal. I've got the bill in front of me. You saw me print this thing out today. It's 35 pages of changes, of laws, existing laws, amendments. And it's a bunch of, you can imagine, I mean, if you've studied law at all, you know how these documents go. But, you know what, I won't even mind reading this. But basically what this really is, it does allow pimps or human traffickers to essentially now, the story isn't exactly true.
I mean, right, it is, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, basically, as the saying goes. So they are good intentioned in that. What's happening right now is that these children, or, you know, these young kids who are getting trafficked, they're getting arrested, and then they're getting a criminal record, and then they're getting tossed back out on the street. So they're doing this to now kind of label these kids as a victim, not as a prostitute where they're going to have the, you know, this record. So in that part, I get it, I understand. However, when you're dealing with these evil pimps and traffickers, what they're going to do, just like what ISIS does with their little underage jihadis, they know now that these young people aren't going to face any kind of prosecution, so they'll get out of. They say that the police can pick these kids up and take them into protective custody, but they can only do that under certain circumstances. They can't hold them for very long. They have to be, you know.
I think it's 2 days max.
Yeah, and then so if these kids have nowhere to go, they're going to go right back to the people that are supposedly taking care of them.
Yeah.
You know, so it's, and these traffickers know that these kids are going to get right back out of, you're not going to go to jail. They're going to get right back out. The cops won't pick them up if they're loitering. And
it becomes a slap on the wrist type of punishment for who's ever involved in this, especially, you know, the person who is
pimping out these kids.
Not just pimping, but also, I guess, you know, hiring them for whatever it is they're doing, sexual acts or whatever it is. It's more of a slap on the wrist for them as well. But as you said, I mean, I can see what they thought they were doing here. I don't think the headline from Washington Examiner is exactly accurate, but it will be interesting to see what sort of, you know, backlash we see from this in the legal system, in the court system in California, which is already, I mean, bass backwards to begin with.
Right. Well, they talk about how I forget a lady there in government's name, but she actually did away with California. There was a law saying if you're taking in welfare, if you're a welfare recipient and you have more kids while you're on welfare, you're not going to get an increase in the amount of welfare you're getting sent. And of course, that has the effect of having these people just say, well, I'm going to have 10 kids because I'm going to get all this welfare. Well, she did away with that. And now California, which is on the verge of bankruptcy, they always are.
On the verge?
They are now going to say.
They went over the cliff.
If you're on welfare and then you keep on having kids, you are going to continue to get more money, more in welfare payments. So it's just incentivizing being a warden of the state and not giving you the means to go out and make a better life for yourself and your family.
Here's my philosophy for issues like this, Leanne. This is why we have a judge and a jury, okay? We're supposed to have judges that are reasonable, logical thinking people. And if you start to see legal action being taken by the judge that's putting these you know, minors into situations that maybe perhaps is not beneficial for their future, well, then maybe the judges need to look internally and say, well, you know what, maybe we can take measurements here because we kind of, I mean, we're the judge. I mean, we are the judge. We have the final say. Maybe we can take steps. But instead, they just want to write more legislation, write more bills. It's just like what Margaret was talking about earlier, the story, what is it? Obama unleashes 3,853 regulations, a record 97,000 pages of red tape. 97,000 pages.
Well, that's
what the hell is going on? 97. What are you writing? This isn't even a book, an encyclopedia of law in 1 year?
That no one understands, and that's just going to be, you know, bogged down the system to try to repeal these type of regulations. But that's just it, is they feel like they can regulate their way to utopia, and it's not going to happen.
InfoWars has more than 15 YouTube channels and about 3 million subscribers. Our main channel has 1.854 or 1,854,000 plus subscribers. Now, they've been gaming the system for a long time to shut down nationalistic or patriotic media, saying we're right-wingers, saying we're extremists. Well, it doesn't matter who we are. We have a right to free speech, don't we? As long as we don't violate the rules. Well, now Zuckerberg has come out and said he's going to restrict conservative news like communist China does, calling it fake news. And Google, that owns YouTube, has announced, and they've done it now 2 weeks ago, that they're going to basically make you click the bell in your notifications. We're going to show you how to do that, or you won't get all the channels that you've subscribed to, and you won't get the videos. Now, why are they doing this? It's more than just censoring. They want you to see the videos that they feed you below and beside the videos you're looking at that are corporately sponsored so they make more money. They're taking the you out of YouTube. So we're in this information war, and it's more important than ever that you promote the videos, that you like the videos, and that you send them on to others. Because the answer to the attempt to shut us down and restrict free speech that's openly now happening is for us to redouble our efforts. We're winning the culture war as true classical liberals that made this country great. We're restoring the Renaissance. So again, if you want to get our videos, so you can make your decision whether you want to see them or not. After all, that's why you subscribed. YouTube's had this since they started 12 years ago or whatever it was. And they're fundamentally changing it so you don't get it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is promoting fake news and trash news and establishment news. It's killing real independent news. But we, the people, by taking action, can break the back of this system. So please click on the bell so you get the notifications and so you get in your feed the videos and channels you've subscribed to. I'm Alex Jones for Infowars.com.
I tweeted this out yesterday, and people were blowing up on Twitter and social media about this story from the Washington Examiner. California Democrats legalize child prostitution. Now, I'm going to get into the actual bill and the nuts and bolts of it, but just some highlights from this story. Beginning on January 1st, prostitution by minors will be legal in California. SB 1322 bars law enforcement from arresting sex workers who are under the age of 18 for soliciting or engaging in prostitution. So teenagers in California will soon be free to have sex in exchange for money without fear of arrest or prosecution. Legislation was passed by progressive Democrats who control California's state governments with a 2/3 supermajority. Predictable consequence of how the real villains, pimps, and other traffickers in human misery will respond to this new law isn't difficult to foresee. Of course, for the Democrats who think that they can create a utopia, it is. Alameda County District Attorney Nancy O'Malley says, I quote, "It just opens up the front door for traffickers to use these kids to commit crimes and exploit them."